The story about Venezuela was all over the headlines up until yesterday. And now you would think it never happened. That's how big our victory was. The MSM doesn't even want to talk about it. Anything that happened, the unmitigated and complete failure, the total collapse of the regime change. Fox is talking about ISIS. CNN is talking, of course, about Jussie Smollett. It's insane. And real quick, Mr. Pompeo, all of our days on this planet are numbered, but not by you and not by the U.S. government. Yesterday's evidence that you have absolutely no control of the situation and you have no idea what you're doing. Now, a little bit later on, we're going to talk about these quote-unquote opposition forces. You know, those innocent, poor working folks that are on your screen here that were violating the Geneva Conventions and displaying Red Cross symbols when the Red Cross came out and specifically said they had nothing to do with it. If this would go before an international court right now, the U.S. would be in a great deal of trouble for what happened yesterday. But we're going to continue to call these people out. And they're coming back. Make no mistake. They are hatching a new plan. And I have made the allegation before, watch Brazil. They're going to be the next step. And they are nobody to joke with. And they don't have to worry about getting an AUMF from our Congress to do this. Until such time as there can be a way found to depose the criminals that have taken over D.C., I would make the allegation that we need to govern ourselves as 50 independent states, nation states, because we could do it. We showed what we have the ability to do yesterday. I think a good start would be everybody go get a copy of your state flag, whether it's just downloading one and printing it off or actually going and buying one. Learning other state capitals. It was something we used to do all the time. It was a game we'd play in the car. And I think it would be a great step forward. It's a small step. But if we can get the idea away from us being led and governed by those criminals in D.C. and start looking at ourselves differently, I think the change would be pretty shocking. Now, it's not that we would even need to get an AUMF because there's always the 9/11 one to fall back on. And that's why they are talking about fake Hezbollah stories. So they're going to probably use the same old tactic that they have been using for the last, well, what is it now, 18 years? Drones. And in case anybody's under any delusion, I know exactly who our enemy is. But I do know how to run their games right back at them. And this is where it starts, right here. They're going to have to tread very carefully now in Latin America because they're not stupid people. And while this guy did win the presidency in Brazil, he did so based on certain economic factors and also the fact that the most popular candidate by far was imprisoned and unable to run. What this guy took advantage of was he was the only one running, representing a certain group of people down there. And everybody else, which was the vast majority, they were represented by 2 or 3 or 4 other candidates who all split up the vote. Speaking of Jair Bolsonaro on the left, he's not a popular man, and he has gotten much less popular recently. And from this article from January, I want to read a small snippet where he was talking about wanting a U.S. military base. Not just any military base. He emphasized that what Brazil seeks in South America is to have supremacy. He is a praiser of the military dictatorship that existed in Brazil from 64 to 85. Bolsonaro and some state governors in Brazil are looking to purchase drones and lean on the United States and Israel for other technology and know-how as they seek to dismantle powerful and heavily armed drug cartels. Yeah, or there's this other thing. And make no mistake, Elliot Abrams is going to... Oh, gosh dang it. I always use the wrong picture. It's so close. Here we go. Here's Elliot Abrams and one of his good friends. On the left. The guy on the left that, of course, was convicted criminal, lying to Congress, putting arms aboard planes that were marked with humanitarian aid. That's our new special envoy to Brazil. Pardon me, to Venezuela. But trust me, Brazil is going to be a big player in this. Now, as promised, RT has reported this, and here is a picture to back it up. Of course, you see the police from Venezuela, and then you see this humanitarian aid guy walking around with a Red Cross t-shirt. That's a huge violation of international law. Protocol 1 I spoke of literally just a couple days ago. Article 1 provides that armed conflicts in which peoples are fighting against colonial domination, alien occupation, or racist regimes are to be considered international conflict. This is, by definition, an international conflict. Colombia is involved. The U.S. is involved. Brazil is involved. Venezuela. There's no doubt about that. This is Article 18. Talks about using proper identification. And Article, and I have this blown up, Article 38, it is prohibited to make improper use of the distinctive emblem of the Red Cross, Red Crescent, or Red Lion and Sun, or of other emblems, signs, or signals provided for by the conventions or by this protocol. So if this were ever to end up in front of the UN, where they have to make a decision as to who really the world is going to officially recognize as the leader of that country, we are in a world hurt. One second, sorry about that. Now, what I would like to do at the end of this video is play this one more time. This is a story that's largely misunderstood. There were 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 individuals wearing Venezuelan military uniforms that hijacked these 2 trucks and defected to Colombia. Now, if it was just 3 guys, why didn't they just walk across the border? It was only yesterday that the Venezuelan military closed the border. At any point prior to that, they could have laid down their arms and walked right across the border and said, we defect, we quit. We want to be treasonous traitors and seditionists, and we want to back random guy named Juan. At any point, they could have done that. Why did they wait until today? Why did they hijack these 3 trucks? And why did they do this? There's the cowards right there on the ground. Why was that necessary? Why did they have to go through all that elaborate machination? It was a planned, coordinated stunt and event. This wasn't the Venezuelan military finally waking up to the truth of Juan Guaido. This was 3 guys that should spend the rest of their life in jail, prison, whichever. Because there's nothing, to my mind, more disgusting and nauseating, even from your enemy. You have to respect your enemy if they believe what they believe and they stand and they fight for it. You don't have to agree with it, but you got to respect that. These guys, no. This what they did was about as heinous a crime as you could ever commit. But they're going to come back. This time it's going to be Brazil. I know we've heard a lot of talk about Colombia. Our vice president is slated to give a speech from there tomorrow. We'll, of course, be watching that and listening. But watch Brazil. They are far more powerful than any military in the hemisphere other than the United States. We are number 1 in this hemisphere, of course. They are number 2. And then far behind them are Canada and Mexico. And this is their backyard. I know we call it ours, but it really is theirs. They have an entire military full of jungle fighters. That's all they train in. It's all they've ever trained in. And they have no problem, and they have, over the last couple of years, deployed their military into their own streets of their cities to deal with the thugs, the Red Command, and that's another video for another day. But they're going to be a big player here, and they're going to do the U.S.'s dirty work for them behind the scenes. And that's where we need to continue to expose this, expose the U.S. involvement in it, and bring it to light so that nobody gets away with this crap anymore. We have an enemy. We need to know how to beat that enemy. And this is the way forward. 50 independent nations, absence of the criminals in D.C. Like, share, subscribe.